My parents love my sister more than me. After she seduced my boyfriend and ended up pregnant, in order to get them married, my mother decided to marry me off to a billionaire who was in a coma. Then, she planned to use my dowry for my sister's wedding. I thought I was just a caretaker for my husband, but when I met his mother, she wanted me to carry a child through surrogacy. I agreed to her plan. But what I didn't expect was that the day I confirmed my pregnancy, my comatose husband woke up when I came out of the bathroom, my hands running through my damp hair, when I suddenly heard a hoarse voice. "Who are you?" Startled, I froze, my heart raced. I turned to the source of the voice and saw Louis Hayden, sitting up in bed, his eyes wide open. He looked furious, his oxygen mask gone. I instinctively placed a hand over my chest, trying to calm my racing heart. I said, "Who are you?" His voice was thunderous this time. An hour later, Dr. Daniel stepped out of Louis's room, beaming with a reassuring smile. Leah, Ellis, Romeo, and I were all waiting. "How's Louis?" Leah and I asked at the same time. We were desperate for good news. "He's fine. He just needs rest and rehabilitation. But he remembers everything up to the accident," Dr. Daniel explained. We were allowed to visit him, and we went inside. Leah rushed to hug her son, overjoyed. But Louis's greeting wasn't what we expected. "I want this woman out of my room," he barked, glaring at me. "She's Pamela, your wife," Ellis began, but Louis cut him off. "Get out." I stood there, trembling, my heart sinking. He didn't recognize me, or didn't want to. Without waiting for anyone to tell me to leave, I turned and hurried out, my thoughts a whirlwind. He didn't know me, and I wasn't sure if he ever would. What if he refused me? What would I do? When Louis's parents emerged from the room, they were visibly tense. Leah avoided looking at me, her discomfort palpable. "Tell me," I asked, voice trembling. "Did Louis refuse me?" Leah nodded, her face tight with guilt. "I'm sorry, Pamela," she said softly, "but give him time. He'll come around. Be patient," Ellis added. "We support you, Pamela. Just give him time. He'll come to accept you." I nodded, but the smile I forced was hollow. Romeo approached shortly after, advising me to move to the guest room. "Mr. Hayden asked for you to leave," he explained. I agreed and packed up quickly. Alone in the guest room, I sat on the sofa, contemplating the unexpected turn of events. Leah and Ellis had done what they thought was best, but now I saw how. Their actions had only fueled Louis's anger. They had hoped the surrogacy would work, but Louis was furious when he learned I might be pregnant. He even threatened to have the child aborted. I couldn't believe it. Was he really that cruel? Leah called me later, asking me not to tell Louis if I was pregnant. She didn't want him to know, especially with the way he had reacted. The news of Louis's recovery quickly spread, and I saw his name all over social media. People were happy to see him back, though I knew his temper had only worsened. Louis had come downstairs by himself the next morning, barely steady on his feet. He didn't acknowledge anyone, servants or family. His mind seemed preoccupied. At breakfast, I walked in and froze when I saw him. He turned to glare at me. "This is my house. Why are you so surprised to see me?" he snapped. "I wasn't expecting you to come down alone," I replied, taken aback. He ignored me, but then ordered, "Come here." I hesitated but walked toward him. He barely glanced at me. "Busy with his phone." "I heard you're my wife," he said, his tone cold. "I don't recognize you as my wife. My parents made that decision. I'll have my lawyer prepare divorce papers." I felt the weight of his words hit me. He didn't want me, not as a wife or anything else. And about the pregnancy, he continued, "If you're really